I used to think eating well meant getting it right. The right foods, the right balance, the right plan. I carried this quiet pressure around food. If I could just figure it out properly, everything else would feel easier too. More energy, better moods, a calmer home. But what I'm actually learning, slowly, is that food doesn't need to be perfect to be supportive. It just needs to help us feel steady. Most days, food isn't something I have the space to optimize. It has to fit inside a life that's already happening. A child who wakes early, a house that needs tending, work that happens in the margins, energy that comes and goes. And for a long time, I felt that meant I was doing something wrong, like I wasn't trying hard enough. But lately, I've been letting food join the day, instead of asking the day to stop for it. And that small shift has changed everything. There was definitely a season where food felt like a project, something I was constantly researching, tweaking, reconsidering. I'd think about what we were eating before the day had even begun, and again while I was cooking, and again while we were eating. And even when the food was good, my mind wasn't at rest. And I know I'm not alone in that. So many mothers carry this invisible mental load around food, trying to nourish everyone, trying to make the right choices, trying not to get it wrong. It's exhausting. And what I'm learning is that nourishment isn't just about what we eat. It's about how much capacity it leaves us with afterwards. These days, we eat the same meals again and again. Not because I've given up, and not because I don't care, but because familiarity steadies us. There's something deeply grounding about foods you don't have to think about. Meals your body recognizes. Flavors that don't ask questions. When I stopped chasing novelty, I noticed my shoulders soften. I noticed meals took up less mental space, less decision making, less second guessing. And I started to realize that repetition isn't a failure. It's a form of care. For a long time, I believed that variety meant I was doing better. That new recipes meant I was more engaged, more invested, But what I see now is that steady food supports steady days. When meals are familiar, they become part of the rhythm, like brushing teeth, like opening the curtains in the morning or making your bed. They don't really demand attention. They quietly do their job. And that leaves more room for living. Sometimes nourishment looks like reheating something warm, something you've already made, something you know will be eaten. Sometimes it looks like buttered bread or toast and fruit, or a bowl of something really simple, or choosing what feels gentle, not impressive. And that choice matters. Because food that asks too much of us takes away from the very thing it's meant to support. I used to feel like repetition meant I was doing less. Now I see it as doing what actually holds us. It holds my energy, it holds my patience, it holds the shape of our days. And when food feels steady, everything else gets a little steadier too. There's a quiet relief that comes when you stop asking food to solve everything. When it's no longer responsible for fixing your mood, or your productivity, or your parenting. When it's allowed to simply support you, where you are, as you are. I don't need food to be perfect now. I need it to help me show up. There are days when nourishment is invisible. It's a meal eaten standing at the counter, my child snacking while I finish something else, a moment where I sit down briefly and breathe. And that counts. That is food doing its work. When meals stop being a project, they leave more space for living, for noticing small things, for being present, for responding instead of managing. They leave room for stepping outside after eating, for watching our kids play, for letting the day continue without friction. I think we often underestimate how much mental energy food can take, and how much relief comes when it gives some of that energy back. When you're not constantly wondering if you should be eating differently, or better, or more intentionally. When you trust the familiar. When you let good enough be good. This way of eating certainly isn't flashy. It doesn't translate well into rules or plans. But it's sustainable. It's lived. And it's what allows nourishment to actually support the rhythm of a family, instead of interrupting it. Food doesn't need to complicate life to be nourishing. Sometimes it just needs to be warm and familiar and kind to our nervous systems. Sometimes it just needs to quietly support the rhythm we're already living inside. If you've been feeling overwhelmed around food or tired of trying to get it right, I hope this gives you permission to soften, to repeat meals, to trust what works, to let nourishment be supportive, not demanding. Because steadiness matters, and food can help us find it. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next week, friends.